So recently, an intuitive friend said something that stopped me in my tracks. I feel awkward asking this, they said, but are you really gay? And I laughed awkwardly, but underneath the uncomfortable laugh, something snapped open. I sighed and I outed myself. I've actually been questioning my sexuality for a couple of years now, and I haven't known what to do with it. I haven't been able to really even talk about this openly with anyone because I'm running a gay men's group. And here I am, living joyfully in a gay relationship, teaching men's Tantra, surrounded by a circle of men I love and care about, and still, something deeper is stirring in here. Not shame, not fear, but a curiosity about what's underneath all the labels I've worn for decades, even the ones I hold dearly and had refused to budge on, like gay or bi. And my friend helped me see a part of me that's evolving, and I've started realizing these labels are very much like clothes from high school that we're still wearing in our 40s, and yes, I use that example because I still have a few of those in my closet, and I actually put some in the Goodwill pile as I was writing this. Can you relate to that? And maybe it's time I looked at that, right? Why are those still in my closet? But seriously, should I still be using the same identities I took on, often without much choice, decades ago? Like, we're talking middle and high school. Maybe it's worth questioning those things. Maybe it's worth choosing more intentionally which of these old t-shirts I wear, even around the house, because they're very much like our identities. But to update the man I am now, the man I'm becoming, and to break some of my ties with that past, and to know I can change, depending on the moment, the context, the connection. Because I also experience these labels as something deeper. Old software still running in the background of my life. And at one point, they helped me make sense of myself. I tried on dozens of labels, throwing the spaghetti at the wall. Gay, bi, queer, demi, poly, fluid, flexible, and a few of those labels stuck here and there for a while. But in that conversation with my friend, I felt it viscerally. Like, some of those old programs are slowing me down, and they're not true anymore. Not because they're wrong, but because they weren't written for who I am now. All the change that's happened in my life, and there's part of me that wants my freedom back from all of that. So most of us, we're still running identity scripts we installed in high school, codes we adopted to survive in our social cliques, in a fight for self-acceptance and to be fitting in with people around us. And decades later, they're still limiting how we interact with other guys, often distorting and limiting our connection with women and really anyone who doesn't fit into the boxes we'd put them in, for that matter. But we can pause. We can update the code. Do I want these limitations? Do they still serve my life? And we can close the apps when we're not using them and meet the moment with a fresh presence. And that's what this video is about. And if you're getting something out of it, I hope you'll take a moment to like and subscribe, and as well, right, to help us reach more guys. It makes a huge difference. But this is Tantra, right? Remembering we are not our programming, and living the full aliveness and power of who we are, discovering who we are. And we are expansive, radiant beings at our core, abundant beyond all the labels. It's not a rejection of pride or identity or queerness to question our sexuality, but an invitation to something deeper and empowering. It's an invitation to connect with the warmth and authenticity in our personality that gets boxed in by all the labels and the trying. And if you love your label and feel at home in it, please celebrate it, use it, stay there, be who you are. But when my friend asked if I was really gay, I felt this whisper inside. And maybe you do too, as I'm sharing this, but that label no longer fully holds me. That there's something alive and more spacious and heartwarming trying to emerge in here somewhere. And can you feel that warmth? I feel it. That quiet longing for a self that isn't boxed in by anyone's story, not even your own. not even the friendly stories. And if so, you're not alone. And this video, it's for you because you were never meant to fit into a label. You were meant to come alive. So if you're ready for that, keep watching. So let me share something personal that I think you'll find fascinating and probably disconcerting that led to all of this. A piece of my story I haven't shared publicly before. So I was 12, walking down the hallway before gym class, feeling guilt. Hormones had just begun to stir in me, fire, fantasies, attraction to the girls in my classes. And with that aliveness came shame, heavy, religious shame, unquestioned, but shame, a sense of this is bad. Just the background noise of everything I'd absorbed, sermons, whispered disapproval from family, purity culture that made desire feel wrong before it ever felt real. I was one of those good kids, right, who went to Sunday school and tried to drag my parents along. I'd been taught implicitly, right, and sometimes directly even, that thinking about desire was just wrong, that noticing girls or having fantasies meant something was broken in me. Everything around me said sex is dirty, don't do that. Can you relate to this? Am I the only one that went through this? Or am I the only one that absorbed all that kind of toxic stuff as a kid, right? But, for example, do any of you remember the old purity test from the 1990s where you would lose some of your so-called purity if you kissed someone, and then your score would go down? And some of my friends, of course, were rightly racing to the bottom on that, holding hands and kissing and doing quite a bit more to lose purity. But the message was that developing even a healthy sexuality, becoming an adult, left you as less of a person. I felt awful about the swirl of thoughts and craving and fantasies of teenage life, and shutting it off just didn't work, so I tried to solve it. I'm an NT on the Myers-Briggs, and thinking is what I do, right? So, with no one to talk to about any of this, right, I thought it some more about, like, how do I do this? How do I be a good person? I agonized for days and weeks, and then, one day, standing at the water fountain outside the locker room, I had a bright idea. I made the decision on the spot. I was going to go cold turkey, right then and there, on fantasizing about girls. Period. I was serious, and I did it. This is about being a good person, and that's who I was. That was my identity, and I was going to hold the line on that. But how? How was I going to do this? So the idea came. What if I used fantasies about the guys around me as a kind of distraction, a crutch? Fantasizing about the men somehow felt safer or contained or less real or something, and would keep me from the swirl of fantasies about girls that religion had told me shouldn't be there. So you can imagine where I'm going with this, and although it may raise an eyebrow from most of you listening out there, it was literally what went through my 12-year-old mind. Okay, just stop, go to cold turkey on all this. And seriously, I wasn't even particularly attracted to guys, not yet, not really. But I literally just picked a few random guys in the locker room and began replacing my fantasies about girls with fantasies about the guys. And with some difficulty at first, if you can imagine suddenly dropping all your fantasies and replacing them with people of a different gender or type than you've ever really thought or fantasized about. But that was the moment. This is where we're going. That was the install. A background app began running that wasn't prior. Somewhat consciously, I chose it. And in my case, right, and it changed everything. And at first, all of this felt unnatural or forced. I was mentally forcing myself to change how my thoughts worked. I had to rehearse it, redirect my thoughts over and over, but I have a very strong mind and it took root. And soon, this new script ran automatically, and a few months later, I experienced myself as bisexual. And then, I decided to just be gay because it was so much simpler and solve the guilt I was feeling. But it's fascinating. Like when I look back at where my labels came from, with an honest look, in my case, I actually chose them. And perhaps your story is really different. I know some of you are labeled by others. Some of us don't experience much choice around this at all. And I don't disagree with that. But there's a simple fact here that is fascinating through the lens of Tantra, which is that we are not our labels. The labels are a script that started at some point in our life, and there are often moments of choice where we first used those labels and began that underlying thought pattern. The pattern that makes it feel true like an identity. It had a beginning. We're not simply passive vessels of our fate, and we can often look and find those operating systems and rewrite them. We can look at how we decorate our present moment experience with those labels for convenience, for connection, or to be a good person or to fit in like I did. And if we are suffering, we are wise to dig deep and root out those scripts. And if we're not suffering, of course, to leave them alone because we don't want to mess our lives up, but to dig deep and find the parts of us that are untouched by everything we went through and heal. Because there's a place underneath all of that. And one thing I've learned on my healing journey is this, that one decision shaped the entire architecture of my inner world, and I'll never know who I would have been without it. But because it happened, it means I can choose an architecture right now with a new thought. And I'm not saying that decision caused my sexuality, by the way. There was probably some bisexuality hiding in the shadows that would have shown up later, but I'm saying it shaped how my sexuality unfolded, and how I learned to narrate my inner world, how I chose which parts of me to grow and which parts to bury, due to guilt and shame. So childhood often leaves us with various things we buried to deal with later. And all of this is what Tantra helps us see clearly, that our identities don't arise in a vacuum. As kids, we grow like trees, twisting, right, toward whatever light we can find, rooted in whatever soil we were handed. And those identities are that twisting toward the light. We're not broken. We're not fake. We're just shaped by navigating this world around us, growing toward the sun. And if you've always known who you are, if your identity sprouted clean and strong and your tree grew straight and tall in good soil toward the bright sun above, I celebrate that. The world needs more of you. But I invite you to understand, if that's not your life, that some of us built identities before we knew what we were building. Some of us grew into things we never wanted to be, tied knots that are hard to untie, and some of us had to survive, and we took on labels, mental health labels, sexual orientation labels, bullied names, and called them truth. And we can't simply shake these off. It takes years of inner work to exorcise the voices in our heads and to get past these survival modes. So if that's you, hear this, you're not broken. It takes time. You're not late. You're not confused. You're simply waking up to all this, and you will learn how to re-script it if you want. We don't need to regret the paths we took or rehash what happened to us. We just need to see clearly what we have been saying yes to, including the true meaning of the identities we've taken on, so we can decide what to keep and what to let go of. We don't have to keep anything that's toxic for us. And that's the tantric path, not rejecting what shaped us, but becoming conscious authors of what shapes us now, and knowing who we are and aligning to something beyond a past stuck on repeat. And from that place, the question, who am I, becomes less terrifying and more liberating. Because maybe you're not here to simply reinforce the same old app, using up your battery in the background, to repeat that same old story anymore. Maybe you're here to write the next version, to design it for truth, for wholeness, for freedom. And in the process, whether your path was stable or strange, right, like mine, linear or meandering, you begin to realize, what if it's not about being more like others, but about being more like yourself? So if you've been questioning, you're not alone. And in fact, I think questioning is more normal than we've ever been taught to admit. Because in today's world, there's a kind of quiet static running in the background of our identities, even the ones we want to keep. The subtle cultural hum, right, that keeps whispering, are you sure? Are you really sure? You say you're bi, but are you really sure you're not just gay or something, right? You hear it if you're a straight guy and you love spending time with one of your friends. Maybe you just want to hug him, or wrestle, or you just enjoy his company. And yet some voice floating around in your head from our culture asks, are you sure you're straight? You seem to be really enjoying this. As if loving and enjoying being with a friend needed to mean something more. You hear it if you're gay, and you find yourself drawn to the energy of a woman. Not necessarily sexually, but magnetically. And there it is again, that, are you sure you're really gay? And if you're bi, you hear the questions from every side. When are you going to pick one or the other? It's endless. And this atmosphere of second guessing, leaving us all feeling anxious and unsettled in our friendships and our identities. And for many of us, the response to all this static has been to cling tighter to the labels, to double down. I'm a gold star gay, or I'd never be with a man. To find comfort in certainty because uncertainty feels like a threat. And I get that. Like when you've spent years battling shame just to claim who you are, questioning can feel like betrayal. And questioning our sexual orientation of all things can make us unsafe, like especially if our friends are phobic and kick us out of the pack. So questioning can actually feel like the enemy, like going backwards, and I get that. But what if this isn't the whole story? What if there's a way to let this questioning itself become something that brings you to life, that brings your friendships to life as well, where you get to be authentic and fully you, where you can make it a spiritual practice even to show up as you are, not questioning as self-doubt, but questioning as self-liberation and knowing who you are. That's where language comes in. Because language, especially the words we use to describe ourselves, it isn't just descriptive, it's generative. It creates the boxes. It creates the very identity that filters our moment-by-moment experience, defining what is possible for you, for me. So let me show you what I mean, to get us past the theory. Take a breath with me here. And say out loud, I'm gay, or whatever label you use. Now, say your version of this. For me, it's I'm dating a man right now. Can you feel the difference? I'm gay versus I'm dating a man right now. The first is a fixed identity, a global statement, I am this. The phrasing makes it a box, often one we've needed and made good use of, but still a box. It implies I'm this, not that, and it limits us. It reinforces a specific way of being in the world with all its cultural limitations. I am gay, right? But the second, I'm dating a man right now, is a description of what's true right now. It's alive, it's time-bound, it's open-ended, there's no box. And the same with I'm happy versus I'm feeling happy right now. One has the box and one doesn't. And it's all in this subtle change in wording. The labels matter. Or even I'm Benji versus call me Benji. Do you see the box? The moment we say I am, even if it's our name, we are that, and it's an app that keeps running in the background. And when we make it something that ends with the present interaction, we're left free of it. Even I love you versus I'm feeling so much love right now. One frees us and one doesn't. One can be this vague program that's running while the other actually expresses aliveness in the moment, giving us freedom to feel differently a day later. It's fascinating to me that our words are part of what makes us who we are. Each sentence that comes out of our mouth when we're describing ourselves carries hidden code that determines how fluid and free we get to be. The first set says, I am this, period. The second set says, this is the shirt I'm wearing today. Neither is wrong. But one allows you to change, to adapt, to grow, so you don't end up wearing the same shirt you did in high school, the same identity, right? When it looks ragged and leaves you out of date with who you are and what makes you happy. And that's where Tantra begins, with the recognition that what we think we are is often just what we've gotten used to saying to ourselves and others. And that we can change. We never notice the power of these words, these constant affirmations about who we are. We leave all the identity apps running. We don't notice the bandwidth they use. And all the missed opportunities are invisible, impossible to see what we can't see, due to how they filter our reality for us. Simply deleting opportunities that don't fit the frame before they come to awareness. They're like a rogue personal assistant sorting our email inbox and calls, deleting half of what we should be responding to each day. That's the power of these rogue identities and labels, these moments when we say, I am this, and leave these labels running in the background until something inside us burns out and hurts. Something slows down, something crashes, until something starts whispering in us, hey, something's off. And often that's the beginning of awakening out of this trance of our labels. We realize how many layers of outdated code we've accumulated that are like malware in whatever we're trying to accomplish in life. Our present lives are just simply bogged down by all the outdated identities. Do you know this place? It's that moment where we know we need change in our lives, but we can't exactly see what's blocking us because we're inside it. And until we look at who we think we are, what we tell ourselves, what we value, and what others think we are, when we look in the closet, we find these old shirts from high school or our 20s, and we find the malware running in our background, and we begin to question, is this still me? Is this all I am? And you know the answer is no. So if you've been feeling this sense that you're becoming a new person, or if you've been questioning why something feels off in your life, if the labels you've long embraced are just starting to feel like a favorite shirt that shrunk in the wash, this video is your permission slip, not to throw it all away, but to set it down. Give yourself the grace of going shirtless, to have a time without a label on it. Even if for just a moment, to let yourself be free of it. Even if in your own inner world. Because sometimes that's where the truth begins. In the quiet moment you realize, I'm not what I've been saying I am. I'm not what I've been saying I am. Not completely. Not anymore. Think about it. Let us know your story. And if part of you knows it's time to shed what no longer fits, come spend a week with other guys doing the same. Links below to join the next retreat or to work with me. Thank you.